Tonight, we stepped quietly into the tiled halls and shadowed corners of ancient Rome, but not as emperors, senators, or pampered aristocrats. No, you're here in the rough wool tunic of a household slave, eyes still heavy from too little sleep, body already aching from yesterday's labors. Forget Hollywood's marble palaces filled with feasts and laughter. Your Rome smells more like smoke, sweat, and damp straw. Welcome to a day in bondage, where survival means working hard enough to avoid punishment and quiet enough to avoid notice. I'm the Candlelight Historian, and this is history as it was lived, unforgiving, unfiltered, and brutally real. Now, relax, take a deep breath, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice is not light, but smell. The straw beneath you is damp, pressed flat beneath your weight, and carries the mixed perfume of mold, smoke, and a faint hint of goat. Above your head, the ceiling beams are darkened with soot from years of cooking fires, and every now and then you hear the faint scurry of a mouse racing to somewhere more important than your corner. Your sleeping place is in the back of the domus, the Roman townhouse that belongs to your master. It is not your room. It is not even really a room. Just a patch of space where you, another slave, and the household's brooms all coexist. Privacy is a luxury reserved for people with names that matter. You are lucky if you have a corner to yourself and a blanket that doesn't crawl on its own. The air is chilly, and you shiver as you push yourself upright. Dawn has not yet colored the sky above Rome, but already you are moving, because slaves do not wake when they wish. They wake when the household demands, which usually means before anyone else even thinks about stirring. You slide your bare feet onto the cold tiles. They bite at your skin like winter stones, and for a moment you wish for sandals, even the cheap kind. But those are for later, when you step outside. For now, your skin against the hard floor will do. A jug waits in the shadows, and you take it up with both hands, still heavy with sleep. It sloshes faintly with yesterday's water, not particularly clean, but enough to splash on your face and arms. The cold bite wakes you faster than any rooster could. You wipe your wet hands on your tunic, which still carries stains from yesterday's tasks. There will be no fresh change of clothes. This tunic is your uniform until it frays to rags, and even then it might be patched until patchwork replaces fabric. The household is still silent. Behind doors and curtains, the family sleeps. You picture them nestled on couches layered with cushions, under covers thick enough to block the morning chill. For them, waking will be easy. For you, waking is obligation. You are already behind before the day has begun. Your first task is simple. Make sure the house breathes before anyone else does. You take up a broom, stiff-bristled and worn, and sweep the stone floor of the atrium. Dust gathers quickly in Rome, dirt from the streets, ashes from the hearth, and whatever the wind carries in through the open doorway. Each stroke of the broom whispers against the floor, a rhythm that makes you invisible but necessary. In the center of the atrium, the household's shrine to the Lares, the guardian spirits, catches your eye. Small figurines stand watch over the family, faces frozen in eternal protection. You give them a quick glance, not sure if they look kindly on you. Officially, they belong to your master. Unofficially, you hope they notice your efforts anyway. Next, you tend to the fire. The embers from last night are nearly gone, but with careful coaxing, blowing gently, feeding them kindling, you persuade them back to life. The smell of smoke seeps into your hair and tunic, as it always does. It is the scent of your role, the constant perfume of servitude. You do not mind it anymore, though you know it marks you in the streets as surely as the color of your clothes. From the kitchen comes the faint clatter of another slave already at work. Bread is being prepared for the day, the dough slapped against the table, the sound carrying like muffled applause for a play you will never star in. You step toward the sound, knowing your hands will soon be busy there too. On the way, you pause to draw water from the household cistern. The bucket is heavy, the rope rough against your palms. You feel the weight travel through your shoulders, down your back, reminding you of yesterday's loads. Your body has been trained into strength by repetition, though it is the strength of necessity, not pride. Muscles built for someone else's comfort. Once the bucket is full, you lug it back inside, the water sloshing dangerously close to the rim. If it spills, you'll mop it up, but every mistake is another chance for criticism. So you steady it with all the focus of balancing a precious cup of wine. You set it down beside the hearth, already sweating in the chill morning. By the time you return to your sweeping, the sky is beginning to lighten, a faint blue creeping through the open doorway. Soon, the voices of the household will rise. Children calling for their tutors, the mistress asking for her hair to be arranged, the master demanding his sandals polished. You brace yourself. The quiet moments are over. You think about breakfast, though breakfast is too generous a word. If fortune smiles, you'll steal a crust of bread when no one is watching. If not, you'll work until midday on nothing but the faint memory of last night's porridge. Hunger has become a constant companion, a shadow walking beside you. You no longer expect it to leave. Your broom whispers again across the tiles, pushing yesterday out the door to make way for today. The house smells of smoke and damp straw, faint oil lamps and cooling embers. Somewhere above you, a pigeon coos from the roof tiles. The city itself is waking, and so are you, though not by choice. This is the beginning of your day, the beginning of every day. And for a slave in ancient Rome, beginnings rarely belong to you. The broom has barely found its rhythm when the silence of the household starts to break. A muffled cough, a shuffle behind a curtain. The faint creak of a bed frame groaning under someone who had the privilege of sleeping a little longer. It's your cue. The family will soon stir, and that means your invisible hands must make everything ready before they take their first comfortable yawn of the day. Your morning chores pile up in your mind before they even pile up in the room. Sweep, fetch, light, prepare. You know them so well you could run through the entire sequence blindfolded. In fact, you probably have. On mornings when your eyes felt too heavy to open, you move toward the hearth again, crouching to coax the fire into something more respectable. Smoke curls upward, licking at the air, filling your nose and sticking to your skin in that way smoke always does. It doesn't matter if you wash later, you'll still carry the smell. Everyone in Rome knows which houses have hard-working slaves simply by sniffing the street. The bread slave is already elbow-deep in dough, arms dusted with flour, muttering a half-sung tune under his breath. You don't interrupt. You just join in the rhythm of the kitchen, finding your space like another tool on the shelf. Your hands reach for kindling, water, and the jug of oil that never seems to be full enough. Your master's household isn't the grandest in Rome, but it's respectable, which means your chores don't stop at sweeping a room or stirring a pot. Respectability requires polish. Floors must shine enough to reflect the sandals of guests. Bronze dishes must glow as though they've just been carried from Vulcan's forge. Lamps must burn evenly, wicks trimmed, oil filled, because no one of importance should ever notice a flicker in the light. So you polish, bronze, silver, even the occasional gold dish reserved for feast days. Your reflection stares back at you, distorted and weary. For a moment, you almost forget it's you, because in the gleam you look more ghost than person. Then you hear footsteps and quickly lower your gaze, hands busy again. Another jug of water waits to be hauled, this time for the mistress's chamber. She expects to wash when she rises, and water that is not ready is as good as disrespect. So you balance the jug carefully as you step through the echoing corridors, the tiles cold against your feet, the walls painted with fading murals of mythological scenes. Gods chasing nymphs, heroes slaying monsters, the kind of stories that entertain free Romans while reminding slaves where they stand. You carry water past Hercules painted on a wall, his muscles exaggerated and his victory inevitable, and wonder whether Hercules ever had to worry about spilling a drop on the floor. You set the jug down silently, bowing your head out of habit even though the mistress still sleeps. Then you slip away, your presence meant to be felt only by the work you leave behind, never by the sound of your steps. Back in the atrium, sunlight has finally stretched across the doorway. Dust floats lazily in the beams, tiny golden specks dancing in the air you just swept clean. You resist the urge to laugh. Rome produces dust faster than you can chase it away. It's a game you can't win, but you keep playing, because not playing means punishment. Your stomach growls loudly enough that you're sure the Lares, the household gods, must have heard it. The bread isn't for you though, at least not yet. You saw a crust on the counter, the tiniest piece broken from a larger loaf. You consider it, but not seriously. A slave caught stealing food might find themselves punished more harshly than one who broke a dish. Dishes can be replaced, trust cannot. You return to the courtyard to refill lamps, each one a tiny sun to be awakened before the real one rises high. The oil drips slowly, the smell sharp and sticky. Your fingers shine with it, slick and impossible to clean completely. Later, when the master lifts a lamp in the evening, no one will think of the slave who trimmed the wick, poured the oil, and tested the flame with careful breath. They will only notice that it worked, which is exactly the point. From outside, you hear the city stirring, the calls of vendors, the rattle of carts over cobblestones, the bark of a dog too impatient for the day. Rome's heartbeat is strong, a mixture of chaos and commerce. You'll meet it later when errands send you into the streets. For now, your world is the Domos, a world with its own rhythm, its own demands. By the time the first child's voice cuts through the silence, half whining, half calling for a nurse, the house is already alive. Fires lit, water fetched, floors swept, lamps glowing, all of it done by hands that will not be thanked, by bodies that will not be remembered. And just as you draw a slow breath, hoping for one small pause, a sharp voice rings from behind a curtain. It is your mistress, awake now, calling for her morning cup of watered wine. The day has truly begun. The call for watered wine rings like a bell in your skull. You set aside the broom without a second thought, your body already moving toward the kitchen before your mind can catch up. In a Roman household, hesitation is dangerous. Quick obedience is survival. The kitchen greets you with heat and noise. Flames crackle in the hearth, smoke twisting up into the rafters, and the air feels heavy, as if the walls themselves have been sweating. Pots clang as the cook, a thick-armed slave with little patience for clumsiness, shouts orders in half-muttered Latin. The smell of bread half-baked mixes with garlic, herbs, and the sour tank of wine spilled on the floor last night. You find the jug of watered wine, dip a clay cup into it, and hold it carefully with both hands. A slave who spills on the way to the mistress does not forget the consequences. The clay feels rough, tiny imperfections scratching your palms, but you balance it like it's made of spun glass. Back through the hall you go, past painted walls of gods who never spill their drinks. past the shrine to the Lares, whose clay eyes never blink at your rushing. You step through a curtain into the mistress's chamber. She reclines on a low couch, hair loose over her shoulders, already stretching her arms with the leisure of someone who has never lifted anything heavier than her own jewelry. Her eyes flick to you, not really seeing you, but seeing the cup. She takes it without a word, sips once, and sets it down. For her, it is the simplest of gestures. For you, it has been 10 minutes of labor, risk, and concentration. She will never know. You bow slightly and retreat, as silent as a shadow. By now, the rest of the household stirs. The master's sandals click on the floor as he enters the atrium, a toga draped around him like he was born wearing it. He glances at the floor, at the shrine, at the fire, all perfect, all ready. He does not glance at you, which means you've done well. The children are less forgiving. They tumble into the atrium with energy too big for the room, shouting, laughing, fighting over toys. One of them throws a wooden ball that bounces off your leg. The boy grins, unbothered, and you stoop to pick it up, handing it back without expression. He grabs it and runs off, already demanding figs for breakfast. For him, slaves are toys that fetch toys. The day's serving begins in earnest. You carry dishes from the kitchen to the atrium, bowls of olives, figs, bread baked crisp at the edges. The trays feel heavy at first, but you've carried them so often that your arms almost move on their own. You serve silently, stepping in and out of conversations about politics, neighbors, and the price of fish. It's strange how you can hear everything and yet be invisible. The family talks as if you do not exist, as if the person holding the platter is just another piece of furniture. You hear whispers of senators, complaints about the baths being too crowded, laughter about gladiator games. These words pass through you like smoke. You carry them, but never keep them. Occasionally, one of the children shouts for more bread, or the mistress waves a lazy hand at her cup. You move instantly, your body already turning before the words are fully spoken. To serve quickly is to avoid notice. To avoid notice is to survive. And then comes the sandals. Always the sandals. Your master finishes eating, kicks off his footwear with a flick of the ankle, and expects them cleaned before he leaves the house. The leather straps are stiff with dust and yesterday's sweat. You kneel without hesitation, your fingers tracing the seams, your cloth scrubbing carefully. The smell is sharp, earthy, unpleasant. You do not flinch. You cannot. When the sandals gleam again, he slips them on and strides out the door without a word. That is the highest praise a slave can receive. Silence, no insult, no strike, no whip, just absence. As the family settles into their day, you continue clearing the table, scraping scraps into bowls for the dogs. A chunk of bread falls to the floor. You pause, glance around. No eyes on you. Your hand moves quickly, breaking off a corner small enough to hide in your mouth. It tastes like dust and garlic and triumph. A victory crumb. The dogs watch you with hungry eyes, tails thumping. You toss them the rest, and they tear into it with more freedom than you'll ever know. For a moment, you envy them. By mid-morning, the household is dressed, fed, and satisfied, which means you have succeeded. And yet, the day has only just begun. Heat presses at the doorway like a living thing. You slip back into the kitchen, and the room swallows you. Smoke curls from the hearth in slow ribbons. The cook's voice cuts through it, deep and certain, as if he is directing a small army with a ladle for a baton. Pots thump, lids rattle. Someone coughs and keeps working. The kitchen is awake, and once it wakes, it does not sleep again until the last ember fades. Your spot is near the prep table, a slab of wood darkened by years of oil and onion juice. Knives rest along the edge, each one with a handle polished by nervous hands. You test the edge with your thumb, not on the blade, just enough to know which knife will cut and which will complain. The cook nods toward a basket, and that is all the permission you need. Cabbages, leeks, and a pile of stubborn carrots tumble out. You trim, peel, and slice. The rhythm is quick but steady, a drumbeat that carries you through the morning. The blade taps the board, a soft knock that matches other knocks and taps all around you. The kitchen has its own song. Steam fogs the air. Someone stirs a pot of barley until it loosens and sighs. Someone else pounds herbs with a mortar and pestle, a slow grinding that smells like summer and sharp green fields. Coriander, dill, thyme, and a few leaves of something the cook will not name. He calls it his secret and then grins because all his secrets smell like garlic. You keep your head down and your hands moving. When he points, you fetch oil. When he points again, you fetch water. When he raises an eyebrow, you already know he wants more wood on the fire. A clay jar sits at the back like a quiet warning. Garum, fish sauce as thick and salty as a winter sea. The cook lifts the lid and the room changes. It is not a bad smell, just a bossy one. It moves into every corner and tells your nose who is in charge. The cook measures a careful spoonful and lets it darken a pan. The sound is a cheerful hiss, as if the sauce is happy to be here. You swallow and keep slicing. People will never thank you for how the stew tastes. They will thank the cook. The cook will thank the gods. The jar will thank no one. The fire needs tending again. You crouch and feed it thin sticks, then thicker ones, building the heat without smothering it. Too little and the stew sulks. Too much and the oil spits like an angry cat. Your forearms glow warm, a wash of heat on the face. The skin on your hands feels tight, used to this dance, careful but quick. Once, when you were new, a pan snapped at you with a burst of hot fat. The blister looked like a tiny coin. You learned the lesson. Move, do not flinch, then keep moving. From the bakery slave comes a tray of flat loaves, edges blistered, dotted with sesame. He sets them down and you breathe in the clean promise of fresh bread. For a moment, the kitchen smells like a festival. Then the garum reminds everyone that every day is not a festival. You arrange the loaves for the midday meal. A towel over the top so they keep their softness. Your fingers want to pinch a corner. Your fingers do not. A boy from the street door appears, hair stuck to his forehead, breathing hard. He carries a message from the master. Dinner will be larger tonight. More guests, more mouths, more opinions about salt. The cook snorts, not in surprise, just in recognition of fate. He starts reorganizing the room without moving his feet. Orders roll out of him. 2 more pots, more oil, a pickled jar. Find the honey, find the good honey, not the one that tastes like a sad orchard. You and the others obey the map he draws in the air with a spoon. The butcher slave arrives with a parcel wrapped in leaves. Pork, tough and stringy, the kind that needs patience. The cook pinches it, eyes sharpening, already calculating time. He points at you and makes the small circle that means grind. You carry the meat to the board, cut it into honest pieces, and fetch the big mortar. Garlic, herbs, a pinch of salt, and the steady push of the pestle. It turns into a paste that smells like it could win an argument. The cook nods again. One nod can feel like a holiday. Water sloshes across the floor as the scullion rinses a basin. Sand follows, a handful thrown and scrubbed with a rag. The grit catches at grease, the floor brightens, and no one slips. You sidestep the wet patch without needing to look. The path through this room lives in the body like a memory of steps. If a pot swings from the hook, you duck. If a lid shifts, you tap it back into place with 2 fingers. If the cook whistles twice, you are already at his elbow with a ladle. Conversation hums in pockets. Not much talking, just enough to keep the breath steady. Someone mutters a joke about the guests who send plates back untouched and then send compliments to the gods. Someone else bets the master will claim he discovered the flavor of lovage last week by accident. The cook pretends not to hear, which is his way of hearing everything. You add chopped leeks to a pan. They sigh and soften, turning sweet. A drizzle of honey gives them a glaze that catches the light. The room smells like a garden learning how to become supper. A runner is sent to the market. You tie the coin in a corner of cloth and pass him the list. Figs if they are ripe, and if they are not ripe, then the darkest dates you can find. Fresh cheese if the seller is in a generous mood. More pepper if the price is not a joke. The runner nods as if he has bargaining power. He has a good smile, which is bargaining power in any century. He slips out into the noise of Rome, and the kitchen tightens again around its work. Time compresses. The sun slides, but in the kitchen there is only firelight and the slow line of tasks moving from raw to ready. You skim foam from a pot with the edge of a spoon. You taste the barley and know it wants salt. You hold a sieve over a bowl while another slave pours. The steam rises into your face and makes your eyelashes damp. You blink and keep your hands steady. A splash would mean starting again. No one wants to start again. The mistress's maid appears and leans in the doorway, careful not to take a single step inside. She delivers a message with the expression of someone delivering a verdict. The silver plates are to be used tonight. The ones with the little dolphins. The cook nods kindly, which means he is counting plates in his head and cursing without moving his lips. You add polish to your list for later. The dolphins will need to shine like real fish. At midday, the household eats a small meal. You carry trays, serve, collect, and return. A wedge of cheese returns half-eaten. You do not ask permission. You pass it to the bread slave who breaks it into 3 small gifts, and no one breathes the word gift. The cook sees and says nothing. Power lives here in crumbs and glances. A nod is a favor. A look away is mercy. Everyone understands the code because the code keeps the room from breaking in half. Back in the kitchen, the afternoon pushes forward. You stir a pot that needs attention every few breaths. The surface turns like a slow whirlpool. The smell deepens. Time begins to blur. The cook tastes, frowns, and reaches for the jar again. Garum, just a little. The flavor snaps into place in a way that feels almost unfair. He grunts, then flicks his eyes toward you. Well done. It might have been for you. It might have been for the sauce. You let yourself pretend it was for you, and the work feels lighter. The runner returns with a bundle tied in reed. Figs, soft and heavy, their skin like a purple night. You wash them and lay them on a platter, a little pride allowed to land in your chest. They are beautiful in a simple way. The cook will drizzle them with honey later and call them elegant while the guests nod as if they have invented fruit. You will be in the doorway holding a jug, and that will be enough. Someone knocks a ladle off a hook. It clatters, jumps once, and is caught by the scullion with a small gasp. A near miss. The room exhales together. you share a quick glance and a ghost of a smile. In a place where mistakes cost skin and reputation, catching a falling ladle feels like a small miracle. The cook pretends to scowl, then spoils it with the corner of his mouth tipping up. By late afternoon, the kitchen is a map of finished tasks. Trays lined, sauces ready, vegetables cut, bread warmed again. You wipe the board and set the knives in order. The fire burns lower now, a steady glow instead of a roar. Outside, the city stiffens for evening. Inside, you can almost hear the quiet that follows a job done exactly as it should be done. Not brilliance, not glory, just competence that disappears the moment it leaves the room. The cook finally sits, only for the length of a long breath. He nods to you in a way that says, "Keep breathing." The hardest part comes with the guests. You roll your shoulders, stretch your fingers, and tie the towel again at your waist. In the kitchen, the day is not divided by hours. It is divided by courses. The next wave is coming. You pick up the platter of figs, test its balance in your hands, and step toward the hall. Outside this door, the food becomes a performance. Inside this door, it was work. You carry both truths the way you carry the tray. Steady, quiet, unseen, but necessary. The smell of roasted meat and honeyed figs still clings to your tunic when another task pulls you away. This time, it is not fire or knives or sweeping dust. It is softer, but in some ways more dangerous. The children. Their laughter echoes from a side room, high-pitched and chaotic, the sound of small emperors in training. You step in and are greeted by chaos in miniature. Cushions lie scattered on the floor, a wooden cart overturned, wax tablets smeared with half-scribbled letters. The tutor sighs in a corner, already defeated by their energy. He catches your eye and gives the slightest nod. They are yours for now. The youngest clings to your tunic immediately, demanding a story. Her hands are sticky with honey, her face bright with mischief. You lift her up, her small weight surprising, and she giggles as if you were born for this role. Perhaps you were, though not by choice. The older boy brandishes a wooden sword, swinging it at shadows, pretending he is a gladiator. He tells you to fall down when he strikes you. You pretend not to hear. He swings again, this time closer, and you let yourself stumble backward in exaggerated defeat. He cheers, triumphant, believing himself a conqueror. The tutor shakes his head, but he does not stop the game. For a free-born Roman boy, even play is rehearsal for command. You gather the scattered wax tablets, smoothing the lines where letters falter. The tutor begins again, coaxing the older children to copy letters, syllables, words. You stand nearby, keeping small hands from dipping styluses into the wrong jars. The smell of wax, faint and sweet, fills the air. Your own education ended the moment you were sold, but here you assist in one more privileged lesson. A child pulls at your arm, whispering for another story. You oblige, weaving a quick tale about Hercules and the lion, simplified, softened. Your voice lowers, gentle, and the child's eyes widen as if the monster is real. At the end, when Hercules wins, she claps, then yawns, small head tipping against your shoulder. For a moment, her weight feels less like burden and more like trust. But trust is dangerous. One wrong move, one careless mistake, and the sweetness of play can twist into anger. You remember stories of slaves beaten because a child tripped, punished because a toy broke, whipped because a tear fell at the wrong time. The tutor glances at you, both of you knowing the truth. A child's whim is a slave's risk. The older boy grows restless again. He asks for figs, more figs, and louder figs. You step into the kitchen, fetch a small plate, and return. He grabs them greedily, eating half before tossing the plate aside. You catch it before it shatters, your hand quick from habit. He laughs, oblivious to the silence of your heartbeat in that moment. Afternoon light filters through the high window, warm and golden, dust motes drifting lazily. The children begin to tire. Their energy flickers, softens. You help gather toys, straighten cushions, smooth the wax tablets once more. The tutor thanks you with a glance, not words. That is enough. Words are too expensive to spend on someone like you. You lead the smallest child back toward her chamber, her eyes half closed, thumb in her mouth. She dozes against you, breath warm, hair smelling faintly of oil and milk. You lay her down gently, adjusting her blanket, making sure she is comfortable. She will remember none of this, but you will. Because every moment like this carries the weight of what could happen if anything goes wrong. By the time you step back into the hall, the noise of the city outside has grown louder. Merchants shouting prices, donkeys braying, the rhythmic clap of sandals on stone. Inside the domus, the household shifts toward the baths and the evening. The children sleep, or at least pretend to, their chaos folded into silence for now. Your arms ache from holding them. Your head aches from their games. And yet, strangely, a part of you almost misses their laughter as soon as it fades. Almost the tutor nods once more, and you slip back into the rhythm of the household, your role shifting again, as fluid as the shadows stretching across the marble floor. The air changes when the master announces it is time for the baths. The household turns like a school of fish, all movements directed by one voice. You take up the small bundle of items that must follow him: linen towels, jars of oil, a bronze strigil for scraping the skin clean. These are not heavy, but they may as well be iron chains. One forgotten item could mean a beating. You check twice, then once more, because the memory of punishment is heavier than the bundle itself. The street outside is alive, louder now, the chorus of Rome in full swing. Wheels crunch over stone. Hawkers call out the price of olives and fish. A stray dog noses through scraps. Your master strides with confidence, toga arranged just so, sandals slapping in steady rhythm. You follow a pace behind, never beside, never equal. The baths rise ahead like a temple to water. Arches, columns, the faint smell of steam drifting even before you reach the steps. You know this place well, not because it welcomes you, but because you serve it. Slaves may not bathe here unless commanded. Your role is to attend, not to soak. Inside, the sound shifts. Voices echo against stone walls, laughter bouncing off vaulted ceilings. The splash of water carries across the chamber. Men greet each other as if they are senators in miniature, even if most are only wealthy enough to pretend. Politics hums through the steam. You keep your eyes down, your ears open, your hands steady. First, the changing room. Your master slips out of his toga, tossing it carelessly toward another attendant. You step forward, folding it quickly, smoothing it so no crease offends him later. The linen feels warm from his skin, and you fold it like you are folding something sacred. Then he gestures for oil. You unstopper the jar, pour a small pool into your palm, and spread it over his shoulders, his arms, his back. The oil gleams under the lamplight, the smell sharp, rich, almost intoxicating. Not for you, though. For you, it is the smell of obedience. Then the strigil, bronze against skin, scraping away sweat, dust, oil. A Roman invention, they say, civilized. To you, it is just another reminder that every part of his body requires your labor. You scrape carefully, each stroke precise, each angle practiced. Too rough, and he snaps at you. Too gentle, and he accuses you of laziness. Balance is everything. You hold your breath until he nods. The baths themselves are a performance. Tepidarium first, warm water wrapping his body. He sinks into it, sighs in satisfaction, and begins to talk to another man about grain shipments from Egypt. You stand at the edge, holding his towel, invisible in plain sight. Every so often he lifts a hand and you step forward, pouring more oil, adjusting the towel at his side, fetching water in a jug. From the tepidarium to the caldarium, steam thick enough to blur the air. Sweat beads on your forehead, dampening your tunic, but you do not wipe it. He reclines, eyes half closed, while other men argue about taxes and gladiator games. You hear everything, remember everything, and speak of none of it. That is the role of a slave, to hold secrets like stones in the pocket, heavy but never revealed. Finally, the frigidarium. Cold water shocks his body, makes him gasp and laugh. He splashes his friend, both of them grinning like boys. You stand on the edge, towel ready. Your feet ache from standing still so long, but you do not shift. Stillness is service. When he emerges, shivering slightly, you wrap him in the towel, rub his arms briskly, and fetch the folded toga. The linen settles back onto his shoulders, arranged quickly, every fold neat. He nods once, the smallest acknowledgement, then turns back toward the street. Outside, the air feels fresher, cleaner. Your own skin is still sticky with sweat and steam, but you know the baths are not for you. They never were. You carry the jars, the strigil, the damp towel, your arms aching with their small weight. Around you, Rome bustles on. Merchants shout, children chase each other, a musician plucks at a lyre. Your master steps into the flow of the city, shoulders square, voice loud. You follow, quiet as ever, a shadow carrying oil and towels, unseen by all except the other shadows trailing their masters. And as the sunlight slants across the marble streets, you know the household will soon need bread, wine, errands completed before dinner. The baths are over, but your day is only half done. The bath steam fades from the skin by the time the domus door closes behind you again. Inside, the cook's plans have multiplied. Lists lengthen, voices sharpen. You are handed a cloth pouch with coins knotted deep in a corner, along with a short string of instructions that arrive faster than breath. Bread from the baker who does not cheat on the weight. Olives that taste like olives and not disappointment. A sprig of fresh rue if it does not cost the price of a cloak. Pepper if the gods are kind. And if a jar seller has a decent amphora without a crack the size of a river, bring it. Also charcoal. Also more oil. Also be quick. You tuck the list into your sleeve where it will be safe from the wind and from fingers that learn quickly. The pouch goes under your belt, pressed flat, the knot turned inward. The memory of punishment weighs heavier than bronze. A lost coin is never just a lost coin. It is a story told by other people about your failure. So you double the knot and test it with a tug. Then a second tug. The kitchen nod is your signal to go. Rome meets you like a river meeting a stone. It presses, it flows around, it does not notice. The street is a thread pulled through a tapestry of sound. Shoemakers hammering soles. A coppersmith auditioning for thunder. Vendors calling out in voices that could cut marble. The air is a stew of scents that refuses to pick a favorite. Warm bread, cold fish, hot dust, oil, a drift of perfume from someone who does not have to cook their own meals. Also, a goat with strong opinions. You slide into the current and let it carry you. Steps are sure because they must be. A cartwheel grinds close to your heel and you pivot without looking. A child darts under an elbow and you lift the bundle high. Your body knows how to be both present and absent at once. Solid against shoves. Invisible against orders. First, the baker. He has the temperament of a man who married an oven. His shop glows. The heat is a wall that kisses the face and warms the eyebrows. Flat loaves stack in neat rows. He pretends not to see you, which is his way of saying he saw you before you arrived. You set a small weight on his scale because this is the game. He sets a loaf, adds a pinch of flour to the other side, smiles like a cat. You smile back with nothing in it. He sighs, removes the flour, adds a heel for good faith. It is decent faith, and decent is rare. You nod, pay, and the bread goes into your basket wrapped in cloth to keep the city from eating it before the kitchen does. Next, the olives. A woman with silver in her hair and iron in her eyes sells them from a jar the size of a child. She fishes through the brine with a wooden spoon, lifting up fat black ones that look like they know secrets. She offers a taste on the tip of the spoon. You take only one because your face tells every story you have ever lived. It is good, salty, clean. You count coins in your head while your fingers count them in the pouch. She names a price that suggests she has adopted you. You answer with a price that suggests you are late for your own funeral. She pretends to be insulted. You pretend to apologize. The dance steps are older than both of you and kinder than most laws. You meet in the middle. She gives you 3 extra and calls it bad counting. You call it luck and mean thank you. A boy runs past with a tray of figs balanced on his shoulder, calling out like a bird. You think of the platter set aside for tonight and add a handful to your basket. A street singer threads a song about heroes through the noise, his voice thin but stubborn. 2 men argue about a new law near a fountain that gives more gossip than water. A rumor about a famous gladiator travels down the street faster than dust. He is stronger than last year. He is weaker than last year. He is not the same man at all. Everyone is right. Everyone is wrong. Rumor does not mind. You edge toward the spice seller, who looks as if he never stops smiling because he sells happiness by the pinch. Pepper sits in a jar that could buy a house if melted into coins. He opens the lid and the air gets sharper, as if the city has straightened its back. You ask for enough to make a pot speak without making the cook cry over the cost. He measures carefully and then flicks 1 extra seed into the paper like a magician. You almost laugh, which is how he gets paid. You do not laugh, you pay. Fold the paper like it is a letter from a friend and slide it deep into the pouch where it will not be stolen by a sneeze. Charcoal comes from a man so black with dust he looks carved from his own product. He loads a small sack on your shoulder and ties it twice, then once more, seeing the coins under your belt even if he pretends he does not. You thank him with your eyes. Words waste water. He grunts, which is hello, farewell, and may your fire behave. Somewhere a mule brays, because a mule always brays. A priest passes with a small procession and the crowd parts. You step back and bow your head because it is easier than being hit with a staff. A child tries to pet the mule and earns a scold that could curdle milk. The child laughs. The mule reconsiders the world. At the jar seller's stall, you look for an amphora that does not tell lies. Hairline cracks hide like snakes in grass. You tap the clay near the neck and listen for a sound that rings true and not tired. The seller watches your fingers with approval, which means the price is about to go up. You choose one anyway because the kitchen needs somewhere to keep dreams and oil. He wraps the neck in straw and names a number that would fund a small war. You name a number that would not fund a meal. You both sigh at the tragedy of commerce. You settle on a sum that leaves everyone slightly unhappy, which is how you know it is fair. On the walk back, you keep the basket close and the pouch closer. A hand brushes the cloth at your waist, and you step sideways as if turning to admire a wall. The hand finds air and becomes very interested in a cloud. You do not look at the owner, because looking is a kind of permission. The crowd closes and opens again as if nothing happened. You breathe with it, in, out, keep moving. Near the fountain, you pause long enough to dip a cup and wet your lips. The water is cool and tastes like stone. You think of the cistern at home, the rope, the weight on your shoulders, and the way your arms respond now without complaint. The gods get their statues and their offerings. Slaves get their muscles and their habits. Everyone is fed according to rank. A freedman you recognize from the baths nods at you in passing. He looks at your bundle, then at your face. There is a flicker of something unreadable. Sympathy, pride, a memory of a knot untied at last. He moves on, you do too. The city does not stop for thoughts. By the time the domus towers over you again, your shoulder throbs where the charcoal sat, and your fingers smell like olives, coin, and clay. You knock with your foot, and the door slave lets you in, his face doing a good impression of a door. You slip past, and the house swallows the outside noise in one breath. The kitchen receives you like a harbor receives a boat, late for the tide. Hands lift, take, sort, bread to the board, olives to the jar, pepper to the shelf that no one admits exists, the amphora to the corner where amphorae go to dream about oil. The cook peeks into the basket and grunts at the figs with the smallest smile. You tie the coin pouch open and tip the contents into his hand. He counts without counting. He knows the weight of every coin like he knows the weight of the ladle. He nods once, no words. Relief travels through your body like warm water. Outside, the city keeps playing its song. Inside, another song takes over. Knives and pots, orders and replies. You wash your hands, roll your shoulders, and step back into the rhythm you left. Errands complete, feet sore, coins safe. The day moves forward as if pulled by a rope you will never hold. You do not need to hold it. You know the direction by heart. Relief does not last long in a house like this. It passes through the room like a small breeze that remembers it has another appointment. The cook pockets the coins. The scullion drags the sand across a patch of floor. Someone knocks a jar with an elbow and catches it at the last heartbeat. Work resumes, but the quiet thought remains, floating just above the heat. If one coin had been missing, the evening would taste different. Punishment in a Roman household is not a mystery. It is a list everyone carries in the head the way sailors carry the stars. There are rules, and then there are rules that people actually follow. And then there is the master's mood, which is the only weather that matters. Most days it drizzles. Now and then it breaks into a storm. The sounds of punishment are as familiar as the sounds of cooking. A short shout, a sudden hush, the scrape of a stool pulled to the side to make space. No one looks, because looking invites a second storm. Eyes drop to the board, to the knife, to the floor that always needs one more sweep. Hands move faster, as if speed can become a shield. The reasons come in every size. A cup set down too hard, a sleeve that brushed a guest, water not quite warm enough, the sort of things that would win a shrug in another life, but here turn into an education. The first lessons teach how to read a room before stepping into it. The second lessons teach how to step into it as if feet leave no trace at all. There is the whip, yes, but often it is smaller and meaner. A slap that rings like a bell. A cuff on the ear that leaves hearing crowded with hum for the rest of the day. A command to kneel until the knees burn like coals. A night without rations dressed up as discipline. None of it is a secret. Rome believes that order needs noise. Fear becomes a background sound, like the hiss of oil on a pan. After a while it is almost comfortable, because it is familiar. Muscles learn a new alphabet. The back straightens when certain footsteps cross the atrium. The voice comes lower when a child looks ready to cry. The hands fold when a guest begins a story that is only funny to people with rings on their fingers. The safest posture is the one that turns a body into furniture. Everyone has a story. The door slave who once nodded too slowly and wore the result for a week in a purple smile. The laundry girl who broke a pin and spent the night scrubbing the same stone while the stars came and went. The boy who laughed at a joke, a real laugh, warm and surprised, then remembered who told it. The quiet that followed taught better than any tutor. Some punishments do not touch the skin. They reach for the ties that hold a life together. The threat of being sold, whispered in a casual tone while a guest sips wine. The idea travels through the chest like a cold wind. Sold is a door that closes and does not tell where it opens again. A city house traded for a farm for a mine for a silence no one speaks of. Separation is the sharpest stick. Friends gone, lovers gone. A child carried away on a morning that began like any other. Rome keeps records of property. Rome does not keep records of broken rooms. The law favors the owner, and everyone knows it. If a master suspects a theft, he interrogates. An interrogation in this world is not a conversation with tea. It is pressure applied until answers appear, even if answers are invented to make the pressure stop. People learn to guard their faces the way soldiers guard a line. Expression is a luxury. A blank look is a cloak. And yet, in the middle of all that, people learn to live. Breathing goes on. Jokes survive in the quiet corners, small and dry, told with eyes more than mouths. The cook's secret ingredient is always garlic, and everyone commits to the bit. The jar with the cracked lip is called the senator, because it leaks and still insists on being respected. Laughter is not rebellion. It is a handhold on a steep wall. Techniques for avoiding punishment become an art. Step wide around the mistress's sandals, which sometimes live in the middle of the floor like royalty on holiday. Knock twice before passing a curtain. Announce presence with a throat clear small enough to be polite and large enough to prevent surprise. Count plates on the way out and count them again on the way in. Never enter a room empty-handed. The body learns a map of hazards that changes by the hour and somehow keeps pace. Reading the master is a separate art. The way he tosses his toga tells which horse won a bet. The way he breathes before he speaks tells whether the baths had the right temperature. A finger drummed on the table means impatience. 2 fingers mean a speech. 3 mean the gods will be blamed for something soon. Most storms can be predicted if the sky is watched with care. None can be stopped. But a head bowed at the right moment deflects a drop or two. Punishment rarely arrives alone. It comes with silence afterward, the heavy kind that settles into the corners. The work resumes, but voices do not climb. People glance without glancing and assign tasks to the shaken person that require hands more than thoughts. Polishing silver is good for that. The The dolphins on the plate grin as if they do not understand the joke. Out in the city, the signs are louder. A man with a scar on the cheek, an iron around an ankle. A chain clinks like a lazy bell. A column near the market stained in a way that makes eyes glide past it. The mines and the quarries live in every rumor. The word condemned carries weight that can be felt across a room. No one needs to describe it. The absence of detail is the detail. Even a careful life can trip. A jar will slip. A child will fall. A guest will invent a slight to fill a slow afternoon. The mind learns to prepare small offerings to luck. A prayer to the Lares at dawn, whispered so the air can keep a secret. A fig saved for the cook, just enough sweetness to make a favor later. A piece of twine tied around a finger to remember a task that must not be forgotten. Ritual is a staircase built inside the self, and still kindness appears in sideways shapes. The mistress's maid who says the silver will be used tomorrow, not today, which means an hour of polish can be given to sleep. The door slave who clears his throat before opening to a guest with a loud voice, warning everyone to arrange faces. The tutor who looks at the little one with milk on her lip and decides the lesson will end early because spelling is hard when the sun is nice. Mercy here is not a speech. It is a pause. It is a nod. It is the absence of a raised hand. By dusk, the kitchen has the look of a stage before an audience arrives. Platters line up like soldiers. Saucers wait with patience learned from slow fire. Bread warms under a cloth that remembers every hand that ever lifted it. Fear has not left the room. It never does. But it sits further back in the seats for now. Competence has taken the front row. The cook meets your eye for a second and tilts his chin toward the doorway. Service again. The safest place is often the one where the hands are busiest. You lift a tray and feel its weight settle across the bones of the forearms. The path to the atrium is clear because the mind has cleared it already. The master laughs at something that is not very funny. The guests laugh because the master laughed. The night continues on the rails it built for itself. Somewhere a whip hangs in a cupboard. Somewhere a coin rests in a pouch, counted and safe. The storm may come tomorrow. Tonight, the line holds. In the doorway between kitchen and atrium, you hold a tray and hold your breath. Laughter rolls across the room like slow thunder. Cups touch. Someone praises the sauce with the conviction of a poet. The cook will pretend not to hear and will hear every syllable. You stand in the pocket of shadow where service waits for its next cue, and the mind does what minds do when hands are busy. It travels to the place that keeps a person standing, to the small, stubborn thought called freedom. It is not a banner or a speech. It is a crumb that you keep in the cheek, a secret taste saved against hunger. Sometimes it is a single coin you turn with a thumb under a blanket. Sometimes it is the sight of a man in the street wearing a small felt cap that looks like a mushroom, and the sense that the cap is not silly at all. It is proof. He was property once. Now he is a person with a name that belongs to him, even if the first two parts of that name still belong to the man who used to own him. A guest calls for more wine. You step forward, pour, step back, tray steady. The talk spills on about grain, about games, about a senator who fell asleep at a speech. Your mind returns to its crumb. Freedom is a road with many stones. The first is called peculium. The cook says the word like it tastes bitter and sweet at once. Money that you keep, but it is not yours. Money that the master allows you to hold until the day he does not. Still, it is something you can count, something you can hide carefully. in the hem of a blanket or in a crack behind the shrine where the Lares pretend not to see. Coins come from places that do not look like generosity. A guest who wants his sandals fetched too quickly to find a servant bell. A small tip pressed into the palm as if the giver is guilty of kindness. An errand done in the market for a shopkeeper who remembers your face and your legs that move fast. A task that falls outside the list, and the cook who looks away as you tuck the coin into your sleeve. Nothing is certain. Everything is watched. And still, coins find corners. The second stone is patience. It does not shine in the hand. It weighs there, a little heavier every year. A freedman passed you in the street today and nodded. The same man who once followed his master to the baths and now sells amphory in his own stall. He wears a ring that looks too large for his finger, as if the metal is still getting used to the skin. He talked with the city official and did not bow quite as far. The memory of the nod is a coal that refuses to go out. Between courses, you carry plates in, plates out. The silver dolphins grin their perfect grin and catch the lamplight. Someone tells a story about a will being read last week. A friend of a friend, generous in death, freed to old servants with a sentence and a sign. The men cried, the storyteller says, and he laughs at the thought of tears over the price of bread. You do not laugh. You fix the napkin near his elbow and pull your hand away before the back of it can be noticed. Manumission can be a ceremony, says the tutor when he is in one of his teaching moods and the children are pretending to nap. A magistrate, a touch with a wand, a declaration, or a name written in a will, or a trip to the census when the time allows. He loves rules because rules look cleaner on wax than they do on floors. You listen anyway. Even a dry riverbed suggests there was once water. But freedom is not a door that opens, and then everything is easy. You have seen freed people walk with shoulders still pulled inward, as if the air might change its mind. The city gives them rights and keeps accounts. They owe duties to the man who freed them. They owe days of work, favors, obedience, salted with respect. The word patron hides in friendly clothing. The word obligation sits behind it, upright and alert. A freedman can grow rich selling cloth or pots or perfumes that smell like oranges taught to sing. He can buy a house with floors that do not remember his knees. He can give orders to men who once gave orders to him. He can also be called freedman in a tone that suggests the word almost. Children of freed people do something strange and simple. They step into the city as if they were born to it. They do not carry the collar in the memory. They do not know the code of glances that keeps a plate from breaking in a room full of guests. They can become anything the city allows, even officials with voices like bronze. You hold that thought a moment longer than the others. It feels like the cool of a fountain on a hot day. A servant at your shoulder clears his throat. New tray, new path. You move again, a line of motion that your muscles know the way geese know the sky. A guest holds up his cup. The master talks with someone about a man who bought his freedom, and then bought a business, and then bought the house next door to the man who used to own him. The laughter is louder now, tinged with a kind of surprise that is not kind at all. You keep your hands ruled straight. You listen hard enough to remember and soft enough to forget. Later, after the last cup and the last slow scrape of plates, the kitchen breathes like a person who has put down a heavy load. The fire settles. The knives sleep along the board. The cook sits and rubs his thumb over a scar that looks like a white thread. He says almost to no one, almost enough, almost there. He does not say what. He does not need to. Everyone in the room hears the same word as a different promise. In the quarters, the straw smell is thick and honest. A lamp throws a small circle of light that seems brave in the dark. You sit and count the coins that have learnt your fingers. 1, 2, 3. A small bronze that has a nick like a bite. A silver that is thin from other people's memories. You do not count aloud. Sound carries. You slide the bundle back into its place among the hidden places and settle. The straw over it with a care that looks like smoothing a pillow. Whispers move through the room. Talk of a man on the estate who bought his liberty after years tending vines until his back sang. Talk of a woman freed after nursing a daughter through a fever that wanted to take her. Talk of a collar seen in the market with words stamped into metal asking any finder to return the wearer because he belonged to a house. The room goes quieter at that. Hope and fear sit together like two people sharing a bench, pretending not to notice the other. You close the eyes and let the thoughts turn into pictures. A felt cap, white and plain. A name spoken without permission needed. A small stall with jars that do not crack. The dolphins on a plate winking because they knew it could happen. A walk through the city with no tray, no bundle of towels, no oil warming in the hand for someone else's skin. It is not a loud dream. Loud dreams draw attention. This one is soft and patient. It breathes with you. If it comes, the day will not smell so different. Bread will still be bread, honey will still be honey, and the same dog will still bark at the same cart. But the air under the ribs will change. The weight on the shoulder will be of your choosing. The coin will be yours without explanation. People will call you by a name and mean you, not your work. The city will not bow. Cities never bow. It will simply make room the way water makes room for anything that can float. For now, the coin sleeps where you left it, the lamp burns low, and the house rests. Freedom is not here, not yet. It is somewhere ahead, on a road that looks like every other road until it is not. You lean into the straw, pull the blanket to the chin, and hold the crumb of the thought under the tongue where it cannot be seen and cannot be taken. The breath slows. The body remembers the work it must do tomorrow. The mind keeps the ember alive. Morning has a way of arriving whether you want it or not, but festivals arrive differently. The city hums louder, even before the sun has risen properly. Voices tangle in the streets. Laughter comes earlier than usual, and the smell of roasting meat drifts through alleyways like an impatient guest who couldn't wait to knock. Rome loves its celebrations, and even a slave feels the ripple of that joy, though never at the center of it. The household buzzes with preparations. The master talks of which god deserves the most impressive sacrifice, as if the gods themselves are sitting in the atrium keeping score. The mistress worries about the colors of garlands. The children tug at each other's tunics, shouting about races and games. For you, festivals mean more errands, more polishing, more trays. But there is also a secret. Festivals mean scraps. Scraps mean taste. Taste means remembering for a moment what it feels like to be alive. The kitchen is chaos wearing flowers. Bread bakes in great stacks. Olives are poured into bowls large enough to serve a dozen. Honey drips from combs like gold, trying to escape. The cook is half furious and half delighted. Furious because the household expects miracles in half the time. Delighted because the ingredients are better, richer, fresher than on any ordinary day. He mutters about lambs, figs, wine, then mutters again, this time in rhythm, almost a song. When the guests arrive, you see the transformation of the domas. It glitters. Lamps burn brighter. Garlands hang from columns. Bronze shines with the smugness of a mirror. The guests laugh louder, their sandals cleaner, their togas whiter. You pour wine and serve dishes, but the air itself tastes different, lighter, more indulgent. A day to pretend Rome is kinder than it usually is. Music floats through the atrium. A lyre plucked, a flute played, a drumbeat steady enough to guide the heartbeat of the room. The children spin in circles until they collapse in laughter. The mistress raises her cup, her bracelets chiming like little bells. The master boasts of gladiators he has sponsored, of races won, of a cousin whose chariot tipped but miraculously spared the horse. Everyone laughs, though no one cares about the cousin. And then, in the background, the quiet reward for a slave arrives. A tray returns half empty, and on it lies a fig glazed in honey, a crust of bread soaked with meat juice, a piece of cheese the size of a coin. You move quickly, before someone notices, slipping the pieces into your mouth. Sweetness explodes first, sugar so rich it nearly aches. Then the salt of cheese, sharp and honest. Finally the bread, soft with fat, tasting like a feast you weren't invited to but still attended in secret. For a few seconds, you forget the weight of your tunic, the sting in your shoulders. You are not full, no. Fullness belongs to others, but you are reminded what flavor feels like, and that reminder is its own kind of feast. Outside, the city joins in. You can hear it in bursts whenever the door opens. A cheer for a race, the deep sound of drums, shouts about cheap wine and better wine. The air is full of smoke and song. You imagine the streets crowded with people tossing flower petals, children tugging their parents toward stalls, lovers sneaking glances in the shadows of temples. Even if you cannot join, you know it happens. That knowledge itself is a stolen sip. Back in the atrium, someone grows bold. A guest raises his voice in song, half drunk, half inspired. Another joins in. Soon the whole table is singing, badly but confidently. You carry platters through the chorus, balancing dishes while trying not to laugh. The cook catches your eye from the doorway, shaking his head with mock despair. You both know the song will live in your ears long after the guests are gone. Later, when the household calms and the guests drift into the night, the scraps are gathered, sorted. The dogs eat well, the pigs better, but even the slaves have their share. Bread, olives, maybe even a slice of roasted lamb if luck is generous. The room where you eat is dim, the lamp flickering, the straw still damp with the smell of the day's sweat. But the taste in your mouth is festival. For a brief moment, the burdens lift. The laughter of the children, the music of the flute, the sweetness of honey, these are not yours to own, but they touch you anyway. And in touching you, they leave something behind. Something small, but real. It is not freedom, it is not even comfort, but it is pleasure, stolen in crumbs and sips, and for tonight, that is enough. When the festival lamps sputter out and the laughter of guests becomes a memory, the house exhales. The atrium echoes differently, empty of voices, only the faint drip of water from the fountain keeping time. You follow the others down a side passage into the part of the domus no guest ever sees, the slave quarters. It isn't a room so much as a leftover space. Low ceiling, rough walls, straw that knows too many stories. The air smells of sweat and oil, faint wine, a dampness that never leaves, no matter how many times the floor is swept. Still, it is yours, or at least, it is not theirs. That counts for something. You set down your bundle and stretch your shoulders, stiff from trays and errands. Around you, others settle in. The cook eases himself onto a stool, rubbing his hands with a cloth that has been clean and dirty 100 times in the same day. The scullion drops onto the straw with a sigh that is almost a groan. Someone else lights a small oil lamp, the flame wobbling like a tired eye. This is the hour of whispers. Bread appears, hard at the edges, but still edible. A clay cup is passed, wine so thin it barely remembers the vineyard. You sip anyway, the sourness clinging to your tongue. It tastes like relief disguised as vinegar. You pass the cup along without complaint. Conversation begins carefully, like a bird testing the air. Someone mutters about a guest who ate more than his share. Another about the mistress insisting her garlands were not straight enough. Laughter follows, quiet but real. The kind of laughter that belongs to people who know they are safe only when the walls are listening and no one else is. A young boy, barely old enough to hold a tray, asks for a story. His eyes are wide, the kind that haven't yet learned to narrow with caution. One of the older slaves tells a tale of Hercules again, but this time Hercules complains about carrying amphorae for the gods, and everyone chuckles. You add a line of your own, something about Hercules polishing Jupiter's sandals, and even the cook lets a small laugh slip out. The laughter doesn't last long, but it doesn't have to. A little is enough. It proves that tomorrow hasn't stolen everything yet. Bread is divided in halves, then quarters. Fingers break it neatly, passing along each piece with a seriousness that makes it more than bread. It becomes a ritual, a bond. You chew slowly, letting each bite soften before swallowing, dragging out the taste. It fills the stomach only a little, but fills the space in the chest much more. After food, there is gossip, the kind that keeps hope alive. Whispers about a slave freed last month for loyalty. A girl who nursed her mistress through illness and earned a name of her own. Whispers too of punishment, someone sold after being accused of theft, though no one knows if the theft was real. The news spreads like smoke, curling into every ear. No one says much in response. Some things you don't comment on, you just store them away, lessons for later. Someone hums, a tune without words, just a rise and fall like breathing. The room joins in quietly, voices soft enough not to carry past the doorway. It isn't a song for an audience. It's a song for the people who have been invisible all day to remember that they can still hear each other. The lamp burns low, shadows lengthening across the straw. A woman adjusts her blanket, muttering about fleas. Someone else jokes that the fleas pay more attention to slaves than their masters ever do. The joke earns another round of quiet laughter. Your eyes grow heavy, though the straw digs at your side and the smell of smoke still clings to your hair. You let yourself sink anyway. Around you, the room softens into the sound of breathing. A cough here, a rustle there. Even exhaustion feels communal, as if the entire household of slaves sighs together. Outside, the city is never silent. Dogs bark, carts rattle, drunks sing tuneless songs. But in here, for a little while, there is a pocket of peace. Not freedom, not safety, but peace of a kind that comes only when people who have survived the same day rest side by side. You close your eyes. Tomorrow, the brooms, the sandals, the errands, the punishments all wait. But tonight, for these few hours, the world is smaller. Straw beneath you, shadows above you, warmth of others around you, a thin blanket, a thin belly, and yet, for now, you are not alone. Morning returns like a habit that refuses to forget you. A messenger arrives before the atrium fountain has finished its first drip. The master wants eyes on his country estate. The word estate carries the weight of distance and the smell of soil. A cart is readied, A small train of people falls in behind, and you are among them because hands that pour wine in the city can carry baskets in the fields. The door slave closes the latch, and the city's echo softens behind you. The road rubs the wheels and hummingbirds of iron sing at every rut. Rome thins into gardens, then villas with walls the color of cream, then long stretches of scrub and grain. The air changes. Less smoke, more time crushed under sandals. A breeze carries the dry hymn of cicadas. The sun, generous as always, offers you its full schedule. You adjust the bundle on the shoulder and accept that the sky is very large out here. The Villa Rustica sits on a low rise like a patient animal. One part is for the family when they bother to come, with painted walls and tidy paths. The other part is for work. Sheds, pens, presses, racks, and rooms meant not for comfort, but for getting through the day. Vine rows climb the slopes in careful lines. Olive trees stand with the posture of old judges. Below, grain ripples like the back of a sleeping cat. The villicus appears, the overseer, with a wax tablet, a reed, and a face that believes in numbers more than kindness. His wife, the villica, runs a smaller empire of stores and keys, and the miracle of making the rations stretch. Tasks begin before greetings finish. Vineyards first. Spring means pruning and tying. Autumn means harvest and treading. Today is somewhere in between, and the vines need hands. You step into the rows. Leaves brush the arms. Tendrils reach like polite thieves. The knife in the hand becomes an answer. Snip here, snip there. Guide the cane along the stake. Twist the tie. The rhythm finds you. It is different from the kitchen, but it has the same logic. Keep the line moving. Keep the line clean. Voices carry through the vineyard. Not loud, just steady. Someone hums to keep the pace. Someone coughs and keeps cutting. A joke floats up and falls into the leaves where it stays safe. Grapes hang like small moons. Green now, later purple or gold. They watch with a smug look that says they will one day become wine and everyone will praise them, as if the feet that pressed them were made of marble. A thin boy in a rough tunic lugs a basket almost as large as his chest. He grins without reason. You grin back for the same reason. Break comes in a thin sliver. Bread stretches with effort across many hands. Olives count for more than they weigh. Posca is passed in a clay cup. Vinegar and water, sharp and clean. The drink Rome gives to the people who make it possible. It hits the throat like a scold and settles like advice. You breathe out and look down the road that waits. It goes on until it meets the horizon and then keeps going in the imagination. Stamina starts in the eyes before the muscles pick it up. Near the winery, the vats sit square and patient. When harvest finally comes, feet will tramp in a purple dance, steady as a drum. The juice running like a river that cannot decide if it is sweet or serious. Someone calls that work fun, then winces at the memory of aching calves. Fun can be a very creative word. Behind the vats are pressed weights, woodworked smooth by hands and weather. The screw groans when turned, a sound that carries across the courtyard like an old story. You think of the cook's mortar and pestle and realize every place has a way of squeezing flavor out of life. Olive trees keep their counsel. They grow like they have time figures out. Picking season brings ladders and baskets and the careful rain of fruit into woven mouths. Pressing olives smells like bitterness, learning how to be generous. The first drops are green and intense, as if a field has decided to become liquid. The villica watches the measure with the attention of a priest. Oil is light in a lamp, a shine on a plate, a fortune in a jar. It does not spill without someone paying for the puddle. Grain fields teach a different lesson. When the heads are ripe, they whisper. Sickle work is a sweep, and a gather, and a sweep again. The shoulders learn the circle. The back learns humility. Threshing follows on a flat yard, where straw will stick to everything it can kiss. Grain comes loose under flails, or under a sledge of stone teeth, dragged by a patient mule that seems to have read philosophy. Winnowing asks the wind to join the gang. Toss the grain, let air steal the chaff, breathe through a cloth tied over the mouth, pretend the dust is an old friend. At the end of the day, skin wears a fine coat of summer. It will not come off completely. It will leave when it is ready. The overseers read counts without mercy. He is not cruel because he enjoys it. He is cruel because numbers are easy to love. Quotas are announced like weather. The punishment here is the same language spoken with a louder voice. A strap hung on a hook that does not need a label. A long trench where stones must be carried from one end to the other and then reconsidered. A long shed with a barred window that looks like winter even in July. People lower their eyes when they pass it. The shed has its own quiet rumor. You keep walking. Yet the fields have their kindness too. It is in the space between the rows, where the wind cools the neck and the smell of crushed time can trick the mind into remembering a childhood it did not have. It is in a fig shared without ceremony, the skin splitting to reveal a small galaxy. It is in the way the sky changes every hour like a slow play. It is in songs that borrow their tunes from birds who do not charge for the rights. No one claps. The reward is that the song finishes and the work feels shorter than it would have felt without it. At midday, the village ladles out porridge that tastes better than it sounds because hunger is the best seasoning. She watches portions with an eye that could measure a rumour to the ounce. She also slips the smallest ladle extra to the thin boy when the overseer looks away. It is not kindness, exactly. It is strategy with a soft edge. Workers who stand up again after eating are good for the tablet's numbers. Still, the boy smiles at the bottom of his bowl. He will carry that smile further than the grain. Afternoon leans long. Shadows stretch like cats. A cloud passes and every neck lifts in the same hope. The cloud moves on, unmoved by prayers it did not hear. You adjust the grip on the basket and continue. The hands of the clock are not needed here. The sun makes its own schedule and the body reads it just fine. Feet keep finding the path between stones that try to trip. The knife remains sharp enough to separate what must stay from what must go. Toward evening, the villa shifts tone. Tools return to hooks. Baskets turn into neat stacks. The press stands there like an old soldier given permission to rest. The village scratches lines on wax. The village locks her stores with a chain that has the manners of a snake. People drift toward their sleeping places, not rooms but spaces, beds that are more idea than furniture. A dog circles 3 times in the yard and decides the dust will do. The first star shows up and pretends it has been here all day. You sit on a low wall. The stone is warm. The air cools and carries the smell of earth like a generous promise. Far off, a flute ghosts a tune. Closer, someone tells a story about a vineyard that grew sweeter after a wedding, as if vines can taste joy through the soil. Laughter is soft. Talking lowers as if the sky has asked for quiet. You think of the city kitchen, of the cook's nods, of the dolphins on silver plates. You think of the coin tucked away where straw makes a good secret. The fields add their own voice to the same thought. Work, wait, gather, keep. Everything here grows, if given time. When the lamp is blown out, darkness is honest and complete. The insects sing an orchestra that never learned to stop. Sleep arrives the way harvest arrives, not all at once, but steady. Muscles surrender their arguments. The mind releases the list. The last thing felt is the size of the sky. It does not belong to anyone. Not even Rome can write its name on it. You return to the city eventually, but not everyone does. Some are sent elsewhere, condemned to the places people whisper about but rarely describe, the mines, the quarries, the underworld above ground. If the villa was hard, the mines are merciless. Imagine a world stripped of color, a gash in the hillside where stone yawns wide, or a shaft driven into earth's ribs with nothing but picks, ropes, and desperation. Here the air is thicker, full of dust that grinds the throat until every cough feels like sand. Light is a miser, giving only what torches allow. Shadows bend strangely. The sun is not gone, but it is a rumor more than a companion. The slaves sent here are not the household kind. They are not the vineyard workers who still hear birds or see a horizon. These are men and women branded by punishment, captured in war, sold for debts that could never be paid. Shackles clink on their ankles, an unmusical rhythm that tells everyone how little chance they have of running. Tools are simple and cruel. A pick that splinters palms, a hammer that bruises more than it builds. Baskets woven tight enough to hold broken stone until the back that carries it is broken too. Work starts when the overseer grunts and ends when the body can no longer lift. The measure of the day is not in hours but in loads. 1 load, 2, 10, more. When the arms shake and the knees fold, there are still more, always more. Punishment here does not wait for mistakes. The work itself is punishment. Overseers carry whips more as punctuation than correction. A crack above the head reminds everyone that silence is preferred. If someone lingers too long with a cough, if a body moves slower than the basket requires, the whip finishes the sentence. A scar is just another line in the day's ledger. Breathing is an act of defiance. Dust rises with every strike of the pick, fills the nose, coats the tongue. The lungs complain, and the complaint becomes permanent. Some cough until the cough is the only voice they have left. Eyes water constantly, stung by grit, until tears feel like companions. The skin peels from constant scraping against stone, hands split, feet raw. These wounds do not heal. They simply layer on top of each other. And yet, people survive. They sing, low and steady, songs with no words, just hums that echo against the cavern walls. The hum becomes a rope, something to hold when the pick feels too heavy. Sometimes a story travels from one mouth to another, carried in fragments. A hero who escaped, a god who pitied slaves, a city where chains melt. You know most of it is fantasy, but the telling keeps rhythm in the arms. A rhythm is half the battle. The quarries are little different. Sun above, dust below, stone everywhere. Blocks carved and hauled, stone meant for temples, amphitheaters, aqueducts, monuments to Roman greatness, raised on backs that will never see the dedication carved in marble. The stones gleam, pure and white. The bodies hauling them are streaked with sweat and dirt, invisible against the brightness. When a block finally rises upright, everyone cheers the stone. No one cheers the hands. Escape is a word people whisper but rarely attempt. The countryside offers little cover, and the chains sing too loudly. Stories exist, of course, of someone who slipped away, lived in hills, found kindness from shepherds. But these are rare, folded carefully into memory like treasures you never touch. For most, the mines and quarries are not a sentence served, but a sentence finished only by silence. Food is coarse and mean. Porridge with more water than grain. A bit of bread that tastes of yesterday's dust. Sometimes olives, shriveled, more pit than flesh. Water from a skin that smells of leather. It is enough to move muscles, no more. You eat because not eating is worse. At night, the quarters are not much different than the shafts. Dark, damp, straw so thin it may as well be a rumor. Bodies collapse onto it, not to rest but to pause. Sleep comes quickly, not as peace but as surrender. Snores rise like strange prayers. Dreams, if they come, are usually of air. Clean, fresh air, remembered like a lost friend. The overseers guard their charges, but they also fear them. Too many desperate men with nothing to lose can become a storm. So chains are kept tight, punishments swift, guards armed. Still, a spark sometimes catches, a mutter of rebellion, a thrown stone, a strike in return. The uprisings rarely last longer than the torch flame, but for that instant, when dust and shouts fill the air, the mine becomes something more than labor. It becomes a reminder that even broken backs can still bend toward defiance. You do not serve in the mines, not today, not yet, but the thought of them travels with you. Every coin you tuck away, every crumb of hope you hold, is measured against the knowledge that one mistake could send you there. The villa is hard, the domos is endless, but the mines are final. So when your body aches from sweeping the atrium or hauling jars, you think of those who swing picks in the dark. You remind yourself that breath still moves in your chest, that the air you taste is air that has seen the sun. The mines live in every slave's imagination as the bottom rung, the place you pray never to touch. Fear of them shapes behavior more than whips do. And in the quiet corners of the quarters, when someone coughs too long or stares at the wall too deep, whispers come, better here than there. Everyone nods. No one needs to add more. The mines explain themselves without words. The day fades in Rome, though not with trumpets or applause. It simply grows quieter, shadows lengthening until the corners of every room are soft and forgiving. Imagine yourself lying back, the rough straw exchanged in your mind for something gentler. The noise of the city becomes a far-off hum, no sharper than the murmur of waves, no harsher than wind moving lazily through trees. Your body has worked, it has carried, it has endured, but now it is done. Muscles loosen one by one, as though invisible hands are untying knots that have been there for far too long. Shoulders sink, breath becomes longer, slower, calmer. Each exhale is a little gift, a little release. You drift away from the hard floors and crowded quarters of ancient Rome and into a softer landscape, somewhere with fields that roll on without end, where the sky feels endless but kind, where no overseer's voice calls your name. In this place the air is clean, touched only by time and evening dew. The stars appear in patient order, each one a quiet lamp hung just for you. The weight of the day falls behind, piece by piece, until nothing remains but stillness. You are safe here, in this moment, with only the rhythm of your breath and the steady beat of your heart to keep you company. Let your eyes close. Let the thoughts of labor and chains and crowded rooms melt into something softer, slower, lighter. Float for a while. Drift as though the night itself carries you gently forward. Sleep comes like a tide, patient and inevitable. You need not chase it. You need only let it rise, let it cover you, Let it hold you with the quiet certainty that tomorrow can wait. Sleep well and good night.